a 2,700-year-old scroll appears to map, with unsettling precision, one of the most daring rescue missions of the 20th century, Operation Brothers. The clandestine extraction of the Ethiopian Jews through a fake diving resort in the heart of Sudan. This is Isaiah chapter 18, declassified. Imagine a land that exists at the very edge of the map. Today, we witness a rescue. We step into a collision between an ancient vision and a 20th century clandestine war, a story of surfboards used for salvation and a diving resort that served as the gateway to redemption. This is the prophecy of the shadowing wings, a sacred plan for an operation that would not take place until our own modern age. The vision begins in verse 1.
Woe to the land shadowing with wings, which is beyond the rivers of Cush.
Notice the sound of that first word. The Hebrew is tziltzal. It is the sound of a whirring, a low, persistent vibration. It has been described as a double-shadowed wing, a land that sends out its protection like a great bird casting a shadow over the sea. Beyond the rivers of Cush, the ancient waterways of the Nile, a signal is being sent. This is the spiritual frequency that calls the messengers to action. The mission is initiated, authorized in verse 2. Every phrase here acts as a coordinate.
Who sends ambassadors?
The Hebrew is tzirim. It means messengers, but also hinges. The language begins to echo the presence of undercover operatives, the hinges of a mechanism hidden within a diving resort that didn't actually exist.
By the sea.
The Red Sea, the aquatic gateway to Africa.
And in vessels of Gome upon the face of the waters.
Listen to the tools. The Hebrew is Gome. What the ancient world saw as reeds begins to resemble something far more agile, light, buoyant, designed to move silently across the water's surface. In our modern tongue, the word sounds almost identical to the word for rubber. The pattern aligns with a stealth operation. Swift messengers in zodiac boats, navigators on surfboards, agents of providence moving with a speed that tricks the forces of exile.
Go, you swift messengers.
The Hebrew is Malachim Kalim. In the secret codes of the Spirit, these messengers move with an efficiency that bypasses the slow gears of history.
To a nation pulled and torn.
The Hebrew is Memushach Umorat. This describes the harrowing physical reality of the Ethiopian Jews, a people pulled from mountain homes and drawn out across an 800-kilometer trek through the desert. They arrived torn by exhaustion, peeled of their citizenship, appearing as starving refugees, yet remaining polished by a 2,000-year-old faith.
To a nation awesome from their beginning onward.
The Hebrew is Nora. This is a community that guarded the Sabbath and the Torah for millennia in total isolation. An awesome presence, tracing its lineage back to the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon, remaining unbroken from the dawn of history.
A nation punished in kind.
The Hebrew is kavkav, a measuring line, a calculated exile designed to refine them without destroying them.
And trampled.
The Hebrew is mevusar, trod down like mud. This is the reality of the Sudanese refugee camps, where thousands waited in the dust, ignored by the world, until the swift messengers called.
Whose land the rivers have plundered.
The Hebrew is bazi'u neharim. The word baza means to plunder or carve up. Their land is physically carved by the canyons of the Blue Nile and bisected by the rivers of nations that kept them hidden until this moment.
To the place of the name of the Lord of hosts, Mount Zion.
The final destination. The hidden operation becomes a global event in verse 3.
All you inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, when a banner is raised on the mountains, look, and when a shofar is blown, listen.
Consider the dawn of Operation Solomon, specifically the roar of a Boeing 747 touching down at Ben Gurion at 2 in the morning. A single aircraft stripped of its seats to carry over 1,000 people in a solitary flight, the most passengers ever flown on a single plane in human history. This is the shofar. The Hebrew is shofar, once a call across ancient mountains, now finding an unexpected echo in a mechanical thunder vibrating through the atmosphere of continents. This is the banner. The Hebrew is nez, not a flag of silk and thread, but a human wave of ancient faces emerging from the belly of a modern bird. It is a message to all of humanity about the persistence of faith. A miracle where human bravery uses diving gear to sneak a trampled nation out of a desert creates a higher level of holiness, for it shows the banner being raised through the strength of the human will. But before the shouting, there was a profound, shimmering silence in verse 4. For thus the Lord said to me, I will remain quiet and look on from my dwelling place, like shimmering heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. Listen to the state of this mission. I will remain quiet. The Hebrew is eshkota. This describes the phase of hidden providence. Isaiah describes this as shimmering heat. The Hebrew is chom tzak. It is that blurry, vibrating air you see on a hot desert road. It is there, intensely real, yet impossible to pin down. This is what hidden action looks like, present, active, yet unseen. The agents at the Arus resort were protected by a shimmering cover that the world couldn't penetrate. The cloud of dew, the Hebrew is avtal. This is the hidden light that guided the refugees through the pitch-black desert treks. It represents the divine presence hovering over the rubber boats, providing a shade from the spiritual heat of the captors. But never forget, while Isaiah's ink dried 2,700 years ago, 4,000 people died walking through the desert just to reach those boats. The dew of lights guided them, but the cost was written in the sand. The geopolitical shift follows. In verse 5,
For before the harvest, when the blossom is over and the flower becomes a ripening grape, he will cut off the sprigs with pruning hooks and take away and cut down the spreading branches.
to understand this surgical pruning, look at the life cycle of the grape. The blossom, the Hebrew is perach, represents the centuries of quiet, isolated life in the Ethiopian mountains. But as the flower falls away, the ripening grape appears. The Hebrew is gamel. This is the transition to intense action. The blossom of the old order is over. The temporary protection of the exile has fallen away, exposing the holy sparks. The refugees are concentrated in the camps. They are ripe for extraction. The pruning hook, the Hebrew is mazmera, is the surgical decision to strike. God cuts off the sprigs. The Hebrew is zalzalim, the local guards and border patrols. He severs the spreading branches. The Hebrew is netishot, the ties to the land of exile. It is a sharp cut in time that severs the undergrowth of desert politics just as the regimes of Ethiopia and Sudan began to crumble. In verse 6, the prophet describes the total abandonment of the exile.
They shall be left together to the mountain birds of prey and to the beasts of the earth. The birds of prey will summer on them, and all the beasts of the earth will winter on them.
Imagine the scene as the hidden mission abruptly ends. In the dead of night, the Mossad agents vanish, nearly intercepted by Sudanese patrols. Behind them, they leave a ghost town, the Arus Resort, an eerie Italian vacation village standing silent against the desert wind. Windsurf boards lie scattered on the sand. Diving tanks stand like steel sentinels in the shadows. The rubber boats sit abandoned on the shoreline, their purpose fulfilled. The camp is left a hollow shell, for the life force, the people, has been surgically removed. What was once a high-stakes stage for salvation is now a carcass of the desert. The mountain birds of prey and the beasts of the earth, the local looters and military scavengers, move in to pick over the remains of an operation that was never officially there. The secret is out, the vessel is empty, and the fruit has been flown to Zion. Isaiah says the birds will summer on them. The Hebrew is cats, the passionate, violent forces that tear at the ruins, and the beasts winter on them. The Hebrew is tekereph, the cold of apathy and spiritual death that settles over a land once its purpose is gone. Finally, the climax arrives in verse 7.
At that time, a gift will be brought to the Lord of hosts from a people pulled and torn, from a nation awesome from their beginning onward, a nation punished in kind and trampled, whose land the rivers have plundered, to the place of the name of the Lord of hosts, Mount Zion.
Isaiah repeats every marker of their identity, but the context has shifted from tragedy to triumph. At that time, the Hebrew is ba'et hahi, refers to that specific window of history. The gift, the Hebrew is shy. In the secret Mossad cables, they were called the cargo. But Isaiah corrects the record. They are a shy, a royal tribute given to a king. They were punished in kind. The Hebrew is kav, measured out line by line to keep them distinct and refined. They were trampled. The Hebrew is mevusa, to be trod down like grapes in a winepress. The literal rivers cut deep canyons into their highlands, carving the soil. But symbolically, the rivers of foreign culture plundered their soul through isolation. Yet they crossed those rivers, being etched by the current. This nation arrived at the airport and fell to the ground, kissing the earth, asking to be taken straight to Jerusalem, straight to Mount Zion. Their suffering didn't destroy them, it carved them into a specific shape, an etched, polished soul that only they could provide. The journey that began in the rubber vessels at the low point of the Sudanese coast ends at the heights of Mount Zion. The name of the Lord is finally whole. As it was planned, so it happened. As it was purposed, so it stands. The silence breaks. The vessels reach the shore. The banner is raised on the mountains. The shofar sounds across every continent, and the word of our God stands forever. The geography of these burdens follows a precise logic, following the lifeblood of the continent as it flows from the highlands of Kush in the south toward the great delta of the north. As the prophecy settles its gaze on the lower Nile, the land of the pharaohs begins to shake. Next time, we move with the water, where Isaiah predicts the total collapse of an empire. We enter the burden of Egypt in chapter 19. Thank you for listening.